Welcome to ABC News Live. I'm Serena Marshall, and we're on Capitol Hill today for a joint session of Congress. Now, that's a little play on words because there are DC MJ advocates who are giving away free joints just steps from the Capitol. But I want to just show you the scene right now because two of those volunteers have just been arrested. We are not sure exactly what the cause of their arrest is. The police came up to the table. We're going to take you over there and show it to you in just a minute and put cuffs on these two volunteers as they were handing out free joints, but the issue here is this is Capitol grounds where we're standing right now, where they are currently in cuffs getting into that police vehicle. And I'm going to show you where they were actually standing though when they got arrested. And we're going to come over this way. Now that's the Capitol right there. That is all Capitol grounds. That's federal land under federal law. Marijuana is still illegal. It's illegal to possess it. It's illegal to smoke it. But we just crossed this sidewalk right here. You can see some of those protesters, advocates out right now with their signs. That is DC public land. Now, DC is one of seven states and the District of Columbia have all legalized recreational use of marijuana. And so what they're doing today is what they're calling a joint session of Congress. Now, their joint session's a little different than you might see on Capitol Hill, where both chambers come together. Instead, they're handing out two free marijuana joints to people who have a DC license and work on Capitol Hill, meaning they work for the government, and you can come and claim your two free marijuana joints. And we're going to come up here. This is where you can claim those. And you can see this big crowd over here. A lot of that is press, but there's also a lot of people who are coming up to claim. We've noticed they claimed probably about 5 or 6 different people had come up, shown an ID, shown they are over 21, and they are a resident of DC in order to claim their two free joints. Now, obviously, this is for today's 420, so that's why they're out here today. And their goal is also in order to raise awareness for medical marijuana. And also next week, a provision expires, and without that provision, the DEA and the FBI can actually impede on local state laws because federal law trumps state law, and they can come in and say that those laws don't apply to the federal government. Now, this provision, which expires next week, would allow them to do that. As of right now, they can't do that. So they're trying to raise awareness to get that provision reauthorized by Congress. Now, let's go in a little bit and see what they're doing exactly over here. Now, see this guy right here? He just showed his Capitol Hill ID.
That's what the police are going to shut us down for, is for blocking the sidewalk.
He's showing his ID right here.
I see it.
And there,
Good job.
sir. Can you talk
This
to us
is,
real quick?
I love how staffers are
he
being
doesn't want to talk to us, but you can see he got his two free joints. Now, one of the issues I'm told and why they did those arrests is clearance of the sidewalk. They're blocking the sidewalk, which is considered a safety hazard. And you can see people are getting very excited about it here.
Sorry guys, we did a free giveaway in the DuPont Circle. The people who are standing in the way, they're standing in the way of us getting customers with your camera. Come on guys. We have to do it on this narrow sidewalk. Here we go. He's not going here. He's all good. All right. Stay clear. See, the police are here. They're not happy. People with red hats, get out of the middle of the street. Jessica, come on. Really. Make an example.
They're worried about the police making more arrests. The police are saying they have to keep this sidewalk clear. And the issue with that arrest was those were Capitol Hill police. They weren't DC local police. And then it becomes a question of authorization, but of course the DC Capitol Police do have authorization to operate anywhere around the Capitol.
All right. Who has a
Adam.
that would like to take home a Canada cigarette?
Now we're going to talk to one of the co-founders, Adam. Thanks for joining us live on ABC News. Can you do you know what happened with that arrest? Did they tell you what happened?
No, they haven't told us what they charged them with, but it wasn't incommoding. It was some sort of charge for distributing a marijuana, I suspect, because they took the marijuana they were distributing and arrested them. And they weren't expecting it to happen today. This is district land. This whole sidewalk right here is district land.
Now, what did you tell your people before coming out today to make sure that something like that wouldn't happen?
Well, we can't control the behavior of the Capitol Police.
Yes, but did you have any conversations with your people in order to tell them where they could and could not hand out these marijuana joints?
Yes, we did, and the police have now, violated that rule. So we don't know where we're at right now.
So why did you decide to come out today? It's 420, obviously, and that's probably the big instigator. But there's also that reauthorization you're worried about for next week, right?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So the continuing resolution that's going to keep the government open also contains legislation that says DC can't write any of its own local laws when it comes to marijuana. And since 70% of the people who live here voted to legalize, we're demanding that Congress remove this rider by Andy Harris, congressman from Maryland, and let us write our own responsible laws. People should be able to buy cannabis now here, but they can't under this rider. You also are afraid that all across the country, people are going to start seeing raids from the Department of Justice if the McClintock Amendment isn't reauthorized. It used to be called the Rohrabacher-Farr Amendment. Now it's the McClintock Amendment. So that's important because otherwise the Department of Justice can enforce Schedule 1 on all these legal businesses under state law, which would just create a huge mess and be a waste of time and money. What we need the federal government to do is to pass H.R. 1227, deschedule cannabis, let the states decide how to regulate it for now, and take all the money away from the Department of Justice to enforce marijuana. They don't need to do it.
Now, President Trump, when he was still a candidate, said that he agrees that it should be left to the states. But his Attorney General has a kind of a different perspective on that. We heard him just a couple of weeks ago in Richmond actually making comments that he doesn't understand why people want it to be deregulated. So how are you feeling with those disconnects between what the Trump administration said before he was elected and what the administration is actually doing now?
I think the real problem is Congress. That's why we're in front of the Congress. No one's talking about what's Paul Ryan doing to get a vote scheduled on marijuana reform. It's 420 week. Today is 420. Why isn't there a vote scheduled for marijuana reform? What are you waiting for, Paul Ryan? So our protest, our beef is with Congress, not with the White House. There's a lot of different viewpoints in the White House. You've got David Bossie, architect of Citizens United, worked for the Koch brothers. He's in the White House. He's for full legalization. Steve Bannon's for legalization. Okay, there are lots of people who have the president's ear that are for legalization. I think Jared Kushner's for legalization. Then you have people who are against it, like our Homeland Security chief and the Attorney General. But you know what? Those guys are just, I think, talking for the base. They're talking for the old conservative base that's against marijuana, that thinks it's bad. But there's a younger conservative base that thinks it's good. And we know that because we're meeting a lot of those people. And the bill that I'm quoting, 1227, is introduced by a very conservative Republican.
Now, there are also 3 other bills introduced into Congress this session, bipartisan support, that would, like you say, deregulate marijuana, get rid of that Class 1 narcotic title that it has, and also treat it like alcohol. I mean, are you seeing support for that bill? It was introduced by a Democrat from Washington State, though, so...
Well, we have a Republican Congress, so I think it's smart to talk about Republican legalization bills. I think they have a much better chance of success. And really, Democrats will jump onto those bills. So let's get a vote on some sort of reform. I mean, there's nothing happening. Are they doing more arrests? Okay.
You did mention, though, that the arrests would be happening by the FBI, the Department of Justice, and those are the two that are more concerned with moving forward on legalization.
Can you move this down a little bit? Okay. So the Department of Justice, DEA, right now cannot go into people's homes or into medical dispensaries across the country because they've legalized through state initiatives, through state law. They're going to be unleashed if this rider next week, if the Rohrabacher Amendment doesn't get passed next week. Oh my God. It's not even the Rohrabacher Amendment anymore. It's the
They change names so often, so it's hard to keep up with them all.
Live, are you right
we
now?
are live on ABC News.
Okay.
That's live TV, folks. Don't worry about it.
It was a brain freeze. It changed to the McClintock Amendment. So if that isn't in the next budget, it's supposed to pass by the 28th, then Jeff Sessions will be able to direct the Department of Justice to raid any medical marijuana business in the country. We're preempting that. We're saying that it shouldn't have to come to that. That's why we're on Capitol Hill today. And plus, this is a day of celebration all across America for people who use cannabis. And we are tax-paying Americans. We're patriotic Americans. We're playing by the rules, and we're still not getting anything done at this in this Congress. So we're taking it to the next level. We're going to be back on Monday. We're going to smoke on the Capitol steps. Many of us are going to be arrested. And if that doesn't work, there's more things we can do. It's just getting started. So I ask people across America, if you care about legalization, now's the time to put pressure on your congressman even consider going to their office and bringing marijuana there and saying, I use this. You're going to arrest me right now? And I bet you they won't arrest you. They'll say, well, no, I don't feel comfortable arresting you in my office. Well, if you don't feel comfortable arresting me in my office, in your office, why do you feel comfortable arresting me in my home? And that's what it is. It's this hidden war on low-income, poor people who are primarily the ones who get arrested for marijuana. Last year, more than 500,000 marijuana arrests occurred in this country. It's outrageous. And now we have 2.5 million people who can't vote permanently for the rest of their lives because they have a marijuana conviction. This has got to stop. We need to have restorative justice for the people who've lost their right to vote. And, you know, I know the majority agrees with me. You know, even if you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, you probably agree with me. So why aren't the politicians acting?
Yeah, what is it?
For a second,
we don't know why they were arrested, but I assume it was because they were giving away joints to congressional staff. But we're on district land, so that's legal. But I guess they're going to do a test case. I guess they're going to see. Sorry,
Adam, we are seeing, it seems like some more police officers moving in.
Yeah, they're going to probably make more arrests because we're giving away joints again.
Now, 29 states do have medical marijuana legalization. If this rider doesn't go through, what does it mean for those 29 states and everybody who lives in those states?
It means the federal government is going to be flying helicopters and raiding, grows, going into dispensaries, shutting them down. You know, it's going to be terrorism on American citizens.
That's a little dramatic.
No, but that's what it is. Have you ever seen a SWAT raid, what it looks like? Animals get killed. People get trampled when the door gets broken down. Tons of property is destroyed. And then they seize all the property. And they take the kids away and put them in foster care. It is like the most extreme thing you can do to an American citizen. And yet it's being done all the time to marijuana users. We're tired of it. We're totally sick and tired of it. And we're not going to let these guys off the hook anymore. We're not going to just, play nice. And put on a suit and lobby and then walk out with an answer no. No, it's going to be yes from now on.
What's the goal? What are you hoping? I mean, you're only giving them.
All right, let's go back and check out, guys. Let's go back and check out what's going on with some of these see some more of these pass outs over here.
Scheduled for 20 days. Nationwide Take Action Day. If you can't make it, contact your families and friends across the nation to contact their representatives here in Congress. You can find their phone number and their email through
you can see these people showing their IDs and their congressional badge in order to get this marijuana joints. You see that bag they're handing them out from.
As well as DCMJ here. They're going to be here working at Monday as well. And so, in addition to that, the laws, we got to tell them. Here's what you tell them when you call them or you see them. Number one, you tell them to legalize marijuana in all 50 states. You can hashtag it or follow my SOS PAC, Saving Our Society, pulling all communities together for just causes such as this. And the laws that I'm talking about that you're going to tell Congress and representatives is number one, tell them legalize marijuana in all 50 states. Number two, you're going to tell them to pass the House, the HR Bill 1227. It's ending federal marijuana prohibition of 2017. Also,
Hey, we're with ABC. Do you feel like chatting with us? We're with ABC. Can you chat with us?
1975, which is respect state marijuana laws. It's in front of them right now. We need to get them to push it and to do it. It's time to stand up for your rights. Congress needs to represent our people. They're there. We're the constituents that represent us. The Constitution doesn't say a damn thing in regards to corporations or institutions. It's all about we the people, as the Constitution says, of, by, and for the people. And the polls already say, Gallup polls, nationally respected, says 60% of the Americans want, 60% plus, want
about how many people have come to claim these joints today? So you're at the end of your bag here.
So, but you gotta wake up, stand up,
100 people.
show up, and speak up. Stand up for your rights.
50 people have come so far, and you've only been up for about 30 to 45 minutes, and they've already had about 50 staffers. And you have to show your congressional ID and your DC ID in order to claim one of these. Now, the issue earlier today, there were some arrests done by the people handing these out because, but they're here on federal land, or excuse me, this is District of Columbia land, even though right behind that big tree right there is the capital of the United States.
Somebody bring some weed here to give out to our interns and people here at Congress. But definitely come back Monday.
They told you I was going to talk to you, right? They told you we were going to talk?
Yeah.
Respect their constituents' wishes, and they need to show up. You need to show up Monday and push that. Okay, somebody to get out? Good, we got it.
See them pulling out the third bag
Thank
here.
you all for coming today, and we want you to come back Monday as well. In your cities or wherever you are, join the different groups. DCMJ if you're in DC. DC Normal, I was at that last night. Virginia Normal. Or any state.
Now I want to talk right now. We're going to talk to Dawn. You're a parent of a child who uses marijuana medicinally.
Yes.
How did you tell us a little bit about your daughter? She's 9 years old.
My 9-year-old daughter, Zoe, suffered from seizures all her life. She's been to several neurologists all her life and been on tens of opiates. No recourse, no relief. I took a flight out to Colorado to the realm of caring last year and got her some CBD oil. And my daughter went from having 50 to 60 seizures a day to being 91% seizure free. So I'm raising that voice for those moms that are like me that were lost. We need a plan B. We have to have a different way to medicate our children. Opiates is not doing it.
Now, what kind of drugs was she on before that? You said you went to a lot of different doctors and tried a lot of different things. What kind of medications?
Imagine a 6-month-old being prescribed phenobarbital, Topamax, Keppra, Onfi, Depakote.
Strong drugs.
And the only thing she did was slowly fade into a zombie, an opiate zombie. This once vibrant child faded into a zombie. I was lost, and I blame myself because if I knew then what I know now, I wish she wouldn't be so opiate filled. But the beauty of it is that it's turned its way around. She's 91% seizure free. So I have to raise awareness to other families. They don't know. They're hearing that it's legal. They're hearing that it works, but they don't know how, and the stigma is still there. So I'm just this loud voice that's called Speak Life, and I'm speaking life over everything that's going on.
Now, before you had your daughter and went to Colorado to try and find some relief for her,
exactly.
Were you did you have an opinion about marijuana?
I never had an opinion about marijuana. I never had a problem with marijuana, but I did not know the medicinal benefits of marijuana. I didn't know all the many medicinal benefits that it possesses, from tumor reduction to reducing seizures for PTSD. The list goes on and on. We just recently did a road trip documentary. I took it upon myself to raise awareness, speak life. And we went to North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, where moms are going underground, and they're going to the underground weed man and putting together $5,000 and $10,000 to get medicine for their children, and then the weed man never shows up. So they're out at $10,000 and their children still aren't medicated. There's power in the plan.
Now, are you concerned with some of the effects, maybe the people concerned with the legalization or the medicinal uses of marijuana might have towards giving that kind of a drug to a child, or because of the kinds of drugs you had her on before, there's a cost benefit there?
Well, I don't look at medicinal cannabis as a drug. I look at it as a holistic way of healing. It's a plant. It's not a drug. It's not synthetically made. It doesn't have side effects. My daughter has no THC in her CBD oil. She goes to school every day. She's wide awake and she's effective in learning.
So it's able to help her get into school and really take in what's happening.
Exactly. But when she was on opiates, she was in an opiate state of mind.
And so was she in school at that point when she was on opiates?
Yes, and it was a constant battle with trying to keep her awake, keep her aware, being teased by the kids. It's a life-changing movement when you start to medicate your child with cannabis. I saw her change in 3 days.
Now, you talk to a lot of other families. What do you hear from those families?
I talk to families that are currently medicating their children as well. I pull my strength from Colorado because that's where most of the moms have to seek refuge, and I learn from them, and that's how I'm going for it. And all parents that are using it are seeing wonderful success.
Now, 29 states have some sort of a medical marijuana law in place. Florida, the most recent, passing it just last week, I believe. What do you go to these new states to try and help them stand up these infrastructures? This is an entirely new industry.
Yes. They are being introduced, and thank God that it is legal, but there's so many restrictions to the legalities of it. My daughter medicates with 28 milligrams of CBD a day. In North Carolina, I just left there, they can only possess and have up to 3%. So if your child has epilepsy and she needs 28 milligrams, but the law is only allowing for 3%, your child is not medicating effectively. So we need to peel back the laws and make some revisions so that everyone can medicate at its fullest potential.
And what's your message for Congress? Have you spoken to your representatives and trying to get them on board with more?
My message for Congress is it's not about Russia. It's not about egos. It's about healing the nation. We have sick people out here that are dying right now that need this medication. So I think they need to lift what they're doing and allow people to medicate so that we can be healthy, have a healthier environment, a healthier community, not opiate-induced children.
Thank you, Dawn. Appreciate you chatting with us today.
Thank you.
And we'll let you get back to the rally over here. And we're going to take another look. If you're just joining us, we are live from Washington, D.C., just steps away from the Capitol. Actually, right across the street there is federal land. That is where the Capitol building sits. You can't see it because we have these beautiful trees in bloom right now. But where we're standing right now, this is D.C. local District of Columbia land. So they are having their first ever joint session of Congress, a little play on word there, as they hand out 2 free joints to raise awareness for a legal provision that if it doesn't get renewed next week would mean that federal agencies like the DEA and the Department of Justice could prosecute states based on their local medical marijuana laws and the people living in those states. So let's go take a look at some of the people that they're actually talking to right now.
I'm an American, you're from Russia, somewhere. Smart approaches to marijuana.
Well, some of them were confiscated by the police already. They probably confiscated about 50 joints when 2 people were standing here.
I'm probably getting high right now.
Yeah, they're probably getting high. They're probably checking it out. Yeah. I mean, we got it.
They with the movement, but they can't.
All right. Since we have there are no congressional staff waiting for joints right now. None. Okay, anyone here, member of the military, former military, who wants to join, who's not an organizer?
Duke, and you are?
William.
Okay. There you go. Okay.
Hey guys, come on. What does she do? What does she do? It's so unjust.
Just
It's so unjust. So not necessary. Why?
Why?
Go to one guy. Come on, baby.
What if your child is sick? What if your child has seizures? You wouldn't help them to take opiates? Why would you lock somebody up that's healing the nation? They can go to their family.
Now you see them arresting another person right now. Unclear why. Hey, it's Serena. It's Serena. We don't know exactly what the cause of arrest is, but you can see the police right now, they've just arrested another one of the DCMJ volunteers. Unclear why they're being arrested. We have not been told, and when we asked the officers, they ignored us. But you can see her right behind this building here.
In front of you real quick.
Back up on the sidewalk, please. Yeah, I mean, it's up to you guys. We're gonna
Criminal Capital Police are breaking DC law and arresting law-abiding
Press. Officer, what's the cause of arrest? Officer, what's the cause of arrest?
Not sure, man.
Okay, well, you just heard the officer didn't know why that woman was arrested. Let's go back over and see. That's the third volunteer so far that has been arrested. Now, again, we're being told this is DC land across the street. Right now we're on federal land, but where this event is happening is in the District of Columbia, where they are one of 7 states that have legalized recreational use of marijuana. Now, these volunteers are checking IDs as well to make sure people are residents of the District of Columbia, but we don't know exactly what the cause of arrest are, as you heard from that officer. Now you can see this person's actually enjoying their joint.
But it is legal for me to give congressional staff 2 free joints on 4K.
It's legal, man. 420. It's legal. This is gas right here. This is legal, man. They can't arrest us for this. They can't arrest us for this. Put this on Fox 5, Channel 4, Channel 9. It's decriminalized. It's decriminalized. It's worldwide. Be honest, man. It helps us. Marijuana ain't never killed nobody. Saves lives. Yeah, we out here.
La posesión de la planta, pero no
We got a congressional staff. Thank you so much for coming out. We're happy we can give you the opportunity to serve. Thank you for all the work that you do. We got another one.
Back to work. Second girl. See you guys.
It's a little shaky over there too, like over here, right? Yeah. You know, we're all in this together. The French and the American people. All right, guys, so back to the 13th Amendment, right? So the 13th Amendment literally states that anytime someone is convicted of a felony and convicted of violating federal law, you can still be considered a slave in the United States of America. This is what we're seeing in the mass incarceration system of the United
Question
States
around
of
these
America.
arrests right now. That gentleman we were watching earlier who was enjoying his joint, there were 3 police officers directly behind him who were just standing there, so we're not clear on why exactly they were arresting the people from this table here. But you can see them as they continue to go about.
Very low nonviolent crimes. Wow. And it's absolutely ridiculous because once you are put into the legal system, you can't quit.
Now you can see here they also even have plants out.
Federal prison system. That's ridiculous.
Yes.
2.5 million.
I was one of them.
And here's one right here. 2.5 million people cannot vote because they possess cannabis, they grow cannabis, because they sell cannabis, because they're patriots for advocating for cannabis legalization in this country. And that's absolutely ridiculous. And it's also ridiculous that we are on district streets and my people are getting arrested for being patriots, for giving away cannabis.
You know what?
To cleaning, to janitorial, to all the way to the staffers that are in the office. All right, guys, we're going all the way till 6:20 today. Please don't leave us. We want you here. We need you here. We need the masses. There's only more power with the more people that are here together. We create power. We're expanding power right now, guys. We are making this on a national platform. And the world is going to see this. The world is going to see federal police violating state laws. But anyways, guys, happy 420. Thank you guys so much for coming out and performing a patriotic duty of advocating and coming out of the Canada closet for cannabis legalization. This is a big deal. You guys are a big deal. You guys are my people. I'm so happy to be associated with you all. Once again, we're DCMJ. If you want any of our tips, any more information to know more about the DC law, we got some handouts up here. Please come visit the table and say what's up.
Can we keep this?
Also, media, you guys count. You guys all have Hill IDs. You guys count in this giveaway. If you more than would like to partake, we will love to.
So if you are just joining us, I'm Serena Marshall for ABC News. We are live, just steps in the shadow of the Capitol as they're handing out free marijuana joints to members who are working on the Capitol and who are residents of DC. Now this comes at a time when there's a lot of questions around the difference between federal and state laws. Now federal law, of course, being having marijuana, possessing marijuana is illegal. States, more than 29 states have legalized some form of medical marijuana. 7 states have, and the District of Columbia have legalized recreational use. And of course, there was a new Yahoo poll that found most Americans consider alcohol and even tobacco more dangerous than marijuana. And there's this convolution of a new administration coming in. You have now Attorney General Jeff Sessions saying that he questions whether or not medical marijuana isn't just a catalyst to harder drugs. You had the Department of Homeland Security Secretary just earlier this week saying the exact same thing, that transnational gangs operating and moving marijuana across the southern border is just a gateway to Americans being hit with harder drugs. Blame the opioid crisis starting with marijuana as well. And so all of these factors hitting together on this day, 420, which is a celebration day for people who enjoy, as these folks do. And so since we've been here for the past hour, we've seen 3 of the volunteer organizers being arrested, but no clear, no clear reason why. They haven't told us why.
Right across the street from Congress. If they got a problem with it, my name is William F. Angolia. They can come down here and do something about it. We got lawyers on staff. We're ready to go to jail, but we're trying to send a message.
Yeah.
If you can't do an interview better than that young lady, you need to find another job.
I already spoke to Adam just a few
There
minutes
you
ago.
go. Well, you've done a fine job.
Thank you.
We're good.
So earlier you were just talking to Adam. He's one of the co-organizers for this. And what's your name, sir?
William.
William, nice to meet you. Thanks for chatting with us. And we're going to let you guys watch a little bit more of this before we sign out. They're going to be here until 6 p.m. Fortunately, we can't be live from here that entire time for you, but we'll come back as things happen.
Unfortunately, the DC City Council, we just wanted to make it a fine if you did get caught smoking out on the streets, but now it's actually an arrestable offense. So that's another reason why DC needs to win its statehood, because there's no reason anyone... What's up? Thank you so much for coming out. We're so happy to have you, by the way. I'm so happy. Anyway, so yeah, so that's some of DC's law. Oh, and then we can
I'm looking for this guy who's supposed to interview.
To anybody in district law. That means what we're doing is completely compliant with our Initiative 71. And now we're going to put on some jams because I'm tired of hearing my own voice, and I'm sure you guys are tired of hearing mine. Please enjoy 420, guys. Thank you so much for coming out. This is the Congressional Sessions giveaway.
They continue to jam and continue to pass out these marijuana joints. They'll be here until 6 p.m. handing these out. I'm Serena Marshall for ABC. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Again, in the shadow of the Capitol as they're giving out free marijuana.